Okay, now it's time for reassembly. So I've pulled the pan off. I've got to pull that oil pickup and modify the windage tray. So the windage tray, you can see between that pan and that pan, this one's quite a bit deeper in the front. This is the Chevrolet muscle car pan, they call it, specifically for like Chevelles and that type of chassis. The shallower section up here is what you need for the F-bodies. So I'm going to start working my way through the Holley instructions for this new pan, and I will bring you back when I have, I'll take you through it, but you know, I've got to put some, the only place, these new blocks are really nice compared to the old small blocks. I mean, the only thing you got to do is put a little daub of silicone in each of these corners. I got to scrape and clean that, but where the back plate meets the block and where the front cover meets the block, it just needs a little silicone under there to help the gasket. I do have a new Felpro gasket for it. Interesting, this gasket was riveted to the pan. Here, so, and here. But that's easy enough to deal with. Like I said, I will bring you through some of the things I run into here, but first thing I got to do is break out the Holley instructions, pull this oil pickup off, then pull the windage tray, and I believe I have to cut it back here somewhere. Just cut it off. So I will show you what I got when I get to it. So I've got to make a slight modification to the windage tray. Just thought I'd show you what we got under here. I love the way Blueprint marks these bearing caps. I mean, there's no confusing that. 4 with an arrow. Very nice job. Very, very nice. So I've got to cut off the first quarter of this. I've marked it with a scribe. But it also talks about some detail. We're knocking a notch in this. I've got to figure that out because I don't see anything that could interfere with. So I'm going to try to understand what that's all about. But yeah, I've got to cut off that, get it ready to go back in, and I'll show you what I end up with. All right, so I've trimmed off the front quarter of the windage tray. And so close to the pan and pointless. Anyway, this is interesting. I am struggling a little bit here, to figure out what they're talking about. They're talking about notching this corner, right? Now, when you're sitting here looking at this, you would make the assumption they're talking about notching this corner of the windage tray. It's not, and it's talking about pickup clearance, but what it's really saying is to notch this corner up here in the front, because where the tube comes over, it interferes a little bit right there. So it's just a little hard to discern, but you can see the tube is hitting right here. And once I clamp this down to the right height, it's interfering hard. So this is where that notch has got to be. So what they're really showing you in this drawing, it would have been really nice if they were able to mark the front, right? But this is ultimately the front. We know it's the high side based on this projection, right? So we know it's the side that has the higher setup, the higher return. But what we're really looking at here is you're looking at this pan like this from the top side down and looking over this way. So this is the bit you've got to trim out to make it right. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because it is kind of an odd place, and the drawing just wasn't clear. Had they marked the front and the rear, it would have made it super easy to understand, or at least mark the rear, right? But this is the modification you have to do for the stock windage tray. They do make an F-Body windage tray for an F-Body pan. There's the part number, 1255823. But they also say you can use this one. So I'm just going to use this one because, well, I didn't buy the other one because I didn't know what was in the motor to begin with. So I will go ahead, make that last modification, and see what it looks like. So here's the windage tray installed. That's the modification you have to make. You can see this, the little wing cut out just to accommodate that elbow. Everything else is pretty much ready to go. Everything is super clean, no dust, no dirt. I cleaned the mating surfaces with pre-paint prep. This stuff, it's, you know, an acetone alcohol blend. It works good for removing grease and dirt, grease and oils. So I'm ready to drop this pan on, I guess. There's a little windage tray that goes, a little baffle that goes in there. Try to keep the stuff in the bottom of the pan. So now I will set this down on and start the torque sequence to clean that all, get it all installed. This pickup is nice. It has 2 screws to hold it up here. The stock ones only have 1, which I'm not a big fan of. They have the hole for the 2nd screw, but they only put 1 in the stock pans, so I'm not sure why. But this one has, you know, the Holley pan comes with 2. I hit that with a little bit of Loctite, torqued all the nuts down. Of course, I didn't pull any of the cap studs, just the nuts off the top. So all you have to do is retorque those, and you're good to go. A little bit of black RTV in each corner to sit under the gasket, and now everything should be happy. So we'll slap that back on. So one thing you have to do with these LS motors that the small block guys might not know is you got to check the mating surface at the back of the block and make sure that your oil pan is not proud of the block. And it can be in as far as 10 thou. Perfectly flush would be ideal, but it's just not machined that well, so 5 thou should be plenty. But you just run a straight edge down the side of the mating surfaces on the back of the block, and that should translate right up the back of the pan. I had a little trouble with this, getting it just right. So I just put a block of wood in here and gently pried right here against the back face and was able to push it right in pretty decent. So just a little tip there. That is a thing with these. Also, whenever I'm running a steel bolt into an aluminum block and I'm trying to do it quick, I try to shy away from the air tools. Just grab yourself a little 3/8 speed wrench. It zips it right in there. You won't gall any threads. It's safer. Now I'll go through and do the final torque sequence on the pan, and we should be good to go. So that's it. That's the Holley F pan. You have to put on the oil filter adapter that comes second. Torque that to 40 pounds, 18 pounds on all the M8 bolts, and 106 inch-pounds on the 2 6mm bolts in the back. So they all have a 10mm head, which makes them easy to deal with. But I'm going to now take and flip this back over and stick an oil filter on it.